Thank you. We appreciate your all of you being here today. We didn't know if everybody's going to be able to get out of Minnesota the way the weather was going last week and stuff. We didn't know if we were going to get in, but glad to see that you made it, and thank you for your testimony. I'm going to turn the ranking member if she has any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today, and I really appreciate your testimony. We appreciate that you come to visit. I know Betty is the true Minnesotan here, but I always like to remind everyone that I was born in Minnesota. Yeah, sure, you betcha.
We're the Minnesota twins.
Yeah, we dress alike, of course. And my family has a lake cabin in Glen, so I've been to visit some of the facilities at Mille, and wonderful, and just really appreciate all that all of you have brought to us today. And so many critical issues. You know, many of them we hear year after year, but I hope we can take some action on some of them this year, particularly, you know, the ones that we hear over and over again about police protection and making sure we're funding, you know, education, hearing about your roads. I mean, there are just so many fundamental things, and I appreciate you, Chief, Mr. Chair, bringing the treaties with you, because we have to be reminded all the time that this is our obligation, and we should be making much more of this funding permanent and making sure that we don't have to ask you to come every year to beg for it, that it's actually something that's allocated and comes forward. So really do appreciate you bringing all that up to us. And it's a long list. I won't repeat everything that you said, but I was making a lot of check marks and saying, yeah, well, this year we've got to get on this and do more with that. So thank you. And I make it a strict policy in my house to never get wild rice from anywhere but Minnesota. So thank you for that, and I hope we can help to keep that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a good place to locate it. So.
And we have the best walleye.
Well, yeah. You do have the best walleye, but that's because we don't have walleye in New England, so how would we know? But, yeah, no, it's a treat to be there. So, anyway, I will turn it back, but thank you so much for being there.
I always love these discussions on wild rice and walleye when I'm from Idaho, and potatoes are what matter. No. Mr. Elsey? I suspect, Betty, you have some questions or comments.
I have some comments and some ideas or concerns I know that you and Ranking Member Pingree will be working on as we go forward. First off, talk about leaving things for next generations. The elders who helped bring me to where I am today, with being open, with being a lifelong learner. Our two elders, Marge Anderson from Mille and Stanley Crooks from Shakopee, and so they're with me in spirit as I ask and make a few statements. EPA is coming up in a lot of the testimony. I won't be here for all of it this afternoon. Jake, you're my alibi because we'll be in defense in a secured room getting some testimony. But in particular, I'm picking up that you've got two issues that we need to look at within the EPA. One is how they work with you regulatorily to protect wild rice. And I know Minnesota's working on some current laws right now at home. And the other thing is the grants and the backlog that you're starting to see for your water infrastructure. And there's no set aside, so you have to compete with everything. You have to compete with the state dollars and all of that. So I noticed that as I was looking through things. And then before I make my closing statement, Tawahi, I believe, Chairman, that the reason why Tawahi is as successful as it was from the tribes up to the federal government. You worked with your tribal nation at Red Lake, and then the counties and the other support services that the state offers, and then what the federal government offers. It said, this is how it would work for our tribal nation. And that's been repeated now to fit the mold, to fit the nation's needs in Minnesota, Oklahoma, Montana, Idaho, and Maine, as well as there's a total of 14. But Red Lake's to be commended for your perseverance and for your openness to work to make that happen. Mr. Chair, I think that the challenge that I'm really seeing, and I think we you and the ranking member dealt with it great in our bill with the allocation that we had. As there's cuts made to other agencies, whether it's in Commerce, State, and Justice, or if it's in the Health and Education bill. We have some pieces of the funding, but they're in other bills as well. And as those cuts are being made, we don't know how they're going to impact tribal nations. And so if there would be some way that we could encourage or figure out how to monitor when a cut to EPA happens, what happens to tribal nations, but also when there's cuts in education, because some of the language programs are in the education bill as well. If we could figure out what that is, because I think we'll see that tribes are hurt more disproportionately than some of the areas that I directly represent in the state of Minnesota. So if you leaders in the community have anything to kind of guide us on that and how you're feeling them, and we can see how the cuts are, I think we could have discussions in the Appropriations Committee with the others. And with that, you're going. Prairie Island didn't make it. Well, they're from southern Minnesota. They're not from the. No, I'm teasing. But I know you're going to be putting their testimony into the record, and I thank you for doing that. McGwitch.
Congresswoman Patty McCollum, I got a comment for you. Our infrastructure, because water is life. Our water lines they've been there over 60 years. Our lagoons are overfilling, and some of these water lines that cause cancer, and we need about $40 million throughout our reservation to fix our water lines. So we brought that up before, and we'll continue bringing it up.
Yeah, I just want to, Representative McCollum reminded me of something I was thinking about, and that is particularly because we've seen so many cuts in other agencies, and I think it is helpful when we can keep an eye on that. And one that I was concerned about and meant to bring up, and you mentioned indigenous languages, and I hear that from so many tribes, the worry about as you lose the elders, the people who have that knowledge, we have to work hard to make sure we pass it along to the next generation. And the NEH canceled the indigenous language grants. I wonder if you might join me in, just encouraging them to put them back in, because it's really the perfect place to access that funding. And I think it was kind of wrong-sided to take it away. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up.
We'll work on that. Preserving the indigenous languages is very important to me. I've been out and visited some of the schools and watched them teach Bannock to the young children there and stuff, and they're trying to expand it into Shoshone and stuff. But I do appreciate you being here. I don't have to tell you that you've got a great representative that fights for you every single day here. Betty does a fantastic job when she chaired this committee, and then she decided to move on to other things. I don't know. No, but she does a great job representing you. You did mention one thing, Darrell, when you were testifying. You said that we need to overturn the Oliphant Law of
1978.
1978. What exactly is that?
It doesn't allow tribes to prosecute non-members that violate our tribal laws. They bring in drugs. Now they bring in fentanyl. Although our law enforcement fights big time, but lack of funding, because we're short $1 million every year on our law enforcement.
But that's the law that disallows you.
Allows us to prosecute non-members.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying you guys got to overturn it so we can prosecute them.
It was.
Now we turn them over to the county, but they let them go in a couple days.
We had some testimony last year on the. We had some testimony on the murdered and missing Indigenous women, and that's something that really bothers me.
Yeah, it bothers me.
That we haven't done it. I know it bothers you. It bothers all of us, but it's the general public doesn't know that we lose 6,000 people every year. And during the hearing we had, I came away from the hearing saying our main issue here is it's a jurisdictional issue. Whether it's the tribes have jurisdiction or the counties have jurisdiction or the state has jurisdiction or the federal government has jurisdiction, and things get lost. And so I think tribes ought to be able to do what they want to do on their reservation, and you ought to be able to prosecute people on your reservation that violate the laws. But somehow we've got it's a more difficult task than a lot of people believe. I've read a lot about the rights of tribes and Indians, written by different authors and stuff like that. And I'm always pretty good when they get to the water rights and when they get the property rights, et cetera, all this kind of stuff. And then I get to law enforcement. and it is just confusing as hell. And we've got to straighten that out if we're gonna somehow address this issue of murdered and missing Indigenous women. It is a disaster.
I'll give you an example. About 3 years ago, we had a non-member. He kept coming back to our reservation, so I finally told law enforcement, keep him in jail. You know, about 2 or 3, we had him in there 2-3 months. 3 months later, the BI told us they were going to take our money, law enforcement funds away if we didn't release the guy.
Yeah.
Because of Oliphant law.
See, and that's just crazy. We said last year we knew we were having reduced budgets across the board, that we weren't going to balance this budget on the backs of tribes. And consequently, in our interior bill, every other area got cut substantially as we tried to increase funding for health care. We all recognize health care is a big issue. If you don't have your health, not much else matters. That's where most of the funding goes, but we have not done a good enough job in Indian education. We got tribal members going to schools that, frankly, I wouldn't send a kid to, and we need to address that. And also with Indian justice, we've got to do something about tribal members. And I suspect it's the same in your areas where you have a tribal member that comes out. They send them to police training, same training that your state officers go to or your local police officers go to. They come, they work on the tribe, work with the tribe on the reservation, and then pretty soon the community down the road hires them away because now they got the training and they can pay them more. They have better retirement and all sorts of things like that. They have a hard time keeping both policemen and firefighters on the tribe, on the reservation, doing the job.
When we kept that guy for 3 months, they were going to charge me for obstruction of justice. They were going to arrest the chairman. But our law enforcement said nobody's going to arrest your chairman.
Yeah. We got to solve this. Anyway, thank you all for being here today. I know it's a long trip out here, and especially in this weather, but we appreciate the fact that you come out. It's very important to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
You bet.
Thank you, panel. Miigwech.
We now have the next panel, Bruce Savage, Austin Lowe's, how do you pronounce that name? Wemigwase? Wemigwase? And John Johnson. Thank you.
Take a while, my man. Virgil.
How you doing, brother?
Good to see you.
Ah, there it is. How do you pronounce your last name? Wemigwase. Okay. I was going to say, yeah, I just didn't want to mispronounce it. Bruce, you're first.